Open your Bibles to Hebrews chapter 11. No. Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews chapter 10, verses 38 and 39. This is probably going to be, it's a Greek to me message. Hebrews 10, verses 38 and 39 reads, "Now the just shall live by faith. But if any man, the King James, but they added any man in there. But if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. If any draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. But we are not of them who draw back unto perdition, but of them that believe to the saving of the soul." I'm going to look at two different words tonight. One in verse 38, another one in verse 39. Highlight or underline the word or words draw back. The just shall live by faith, but if any man draw back. Put it on the screen. Drawback. It's taken from a Greek word, and I'll spell it out here. Hupostelio. Hupostelio. What does it mean? What does hupostelio mean? Well, it means to draw back, as the King James correctly used the right meaning for this Greek word, hupostelio. It could mean to withdraw, from something, that has already been started. Let's just write that down too. That has already been started. It could also mean to shrink back. You could use any of these definitions. What hupostelomai means is to withdraw from something that has already started, to shrink back. It's defining a person who starts on a path and then abruptly reverses direction. He was going this way, but now he or she is going that way. They're moving backwards. They're backing out of a position that they held, or they're backing out of some prior commitment. Hupostelomai is the Greek word. Basically, they're withdrawing from something they already started. That's what Paul was addressing here in Hebrews 10, verse 38. He was referring to Christians. This is not referring to, he was not referring to non-Christians. He's referring to Christians started something, and they decided to abruptly reverse their direction. Instead of going forward, they're now going backward. They're backing out of position, of whatever position they held, or some prior commitment. Now, the other word I want to look at is perdition. The Greek. Apoia. Apoia is the Greek. What does this describe? I don't want to. Something that is ruined. And rotten. That is decomposing. You got that? It means something that becomes so ruined and rotten, it starts decomposing. This word is often used in the Greek to describe the smell or the stench of a decaying animal or a dead human body. It has a putrid, disgusting scent. A scent that leads to someone being nauseated. One whiff of it leaves you with a sick feeling. A feeling that goes all the way down to the pit of your stomach. The smell is repulsive. To the point where you want to run to, let's just use modern terms, to the bathroom to vomit. I mean, Paul used a very descriptive word there. Apoiai. Perdition. You really think about it. It's a very descriptive word. It paints the picture of what happens when a person walks away from the call of God. What happens to that person? His life turns stinky. Let's just call it that. His life turns stinky. Now that person still could be saved. But more times than not, it's a person that has decided that, nope, Christ was not the answer. They've come to the conclusion that Christ is not the only person that could save them. They could save themselves, maybe. Or they could look to someone else to save them. Such as Allah. Or some other religious belief system. Or they don't believe in God at all anymore. They don't believe Christ was ever someone that even existed. Well, how were they ever saved? And that's one of the problems with salvation. You never know when somebody says they're saved and they turn out like this. What was their salvation based on? And there's a lot of false doctrine out there that can lead you down a road that is nothing like the scriptures define what salvation is all about. So it paints a picture of what happens when a person walks away. I don't want to have nothing to do with this any longer. Jesus is completely out of my life. I don't believe him any longer. I don't care. It was a waste of time. His blood doesn't mean anything. Like I said, his life can get pretty stinky. But it could also mean a Christian that has decided that, yeah, Jesus does save. His blood has the power to save me. I have to put my faith in that for salvation. But it also could describe, in a lighter sense, a person that decides to just get in by the skin of their teeth. And there's more Christians out there like that than you might think. That's their mindset. They don't care about anything of why God called them in the first place. They don't care about anything, including the call of God in their life. And of course, there are people out there that throw in the towel and they quit, but they don't see the results as quickly as they expect. They have short-lived faith. To give you an example, if they pray for healing, and if their healing doesn't come quickly, they allow the flesh and the evil minion's influence to take them to a low-level conclusion that it must be God's will for them to be sick. You could say that about finances also. People start believing for a financial harvest with all the erroneous teaching that is out there. And there's plenty, especially in the prosperity doctrine, that's preached out there. But they never get to see that harvest come in. Unfortunately, because of bad teaching. So they start believing that, well, maybe this prosperity doctrine is wrong. I hope they do believe that, because that's exactly what they should believe. They're giving to get, because they think God has promised them that if they give, they'll become millionaires. They treat God like a microwave. They want instant or quickly receive the results that they're asking for. It doesn't matter their problems took a long time probably to create. And they don't care to even give faith a time to work. Unfortunately, most people quit their faith before faith has time to work. So what do these people need? They need a good dosage of patience. To go along with their faith. Faith and patience are partners. I repeat, faith and patience are partners. You need both. I believe you also need both to fulfill whatever God's purpose is for you, whatever is part of God's will for your life. They go hand in hand. You go to Hebrews 10:36, it says, For you have need of patience, that after you have done the will of God, you might receive the promise. You need both to receive you need both faith and patience to receive the promises of God. For you have need of patience, that after you've done the will of God, you might receive the promise. Now the word patience comes from a Greek word, hupomene. Let me see if I can find a spot on the board here. Let's just go right here. I used to preach a lot about hupomene and hupomeno. The early church called this type of patience the queen of all virtues. They believed if you had this virtue, you could get through anything and you wouldn't quit. This word, hupomene, is a compound word of hupo and meno. The word meno is the primary root of the word, and it means to stay, remain, continue, to permanently. I'm going to run out of room here, so abide. Permanently abide. It is the word that Jesus used in John 15:7, when he says, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. When John, who wrote that gospel, wrote this verse, he used the word meno to describe abiding in the Lord. A more literal translation would be, and I don't have a place here to write it, is to steadfastly and to continuously abide in me, me being the Lord. And if my word if you stay in my word steadfastly and continuously, I will abide in you. And you may ask what you will, and it shall be done for you. But the picture radically changes here when you add the prefix hupo at the beginning of the word. Hupo at the beginning of the word. The word hupo means under, and in certain cases it could also mean alongside. When you compound this with meno, it paints a picture of a person who's under, hupo, something such as a heavy burden or load. But this person has resolved that he or she is going to stay, the meno part, in that location, in that spot, in that place, regardless how hard or heavy that burden or load gets. Why? Because the person is totally committed to maintain that position. That person will stay under that load as long as it is necessary for him or her to achieve victory. He is determined, or she is determined, on standing by his or her commitment, regardless of the cost he or she must pay. Nothing whatsoever can sway or move him or her to change their mind. Because they have determined, and their intention is that they're not going to relinquish his or her territory. No. Greek scholars have said that hupomene would be better translated endurance, which I have done many times, especially in the earlier teachings. And that I agree with. They're correct. Because endurance is an attitude that never gives up. Never. It is a faith that manifests as resistant, persistent, tough, determined, tenacious spirit that refuses to let go in what he or she believes in. It is the power to hang in there. See, we have lost the understanding and the meaning of these powerful words that I've just given you tonight. But the early church knew exactly what they meant. They understood the power of this type of patience. They were up against the gates of hell, the power of the Roman evil empire. Those early Christians didn't have a Bible, school degree. They didn't have diplomas to lean on and wave in the faces of the authorities and ruling powers. They didn't have legal protection like we have in the United States of America, the Constitution, even though that's eroding away quickly. There was no Christian lawyers. There was not even any politicians, whether they're Christian or not, to help them in their defense. They didn't have any of those things. But these early New Testament believers understood if they stood their ground long enough, Satan and his minions would eventually back off and leave them alone. That's what they believed in. And sometimes it did, and sometimes it took them to their death. Either way, they understood also it was a win-win situation. There's victory in life, but there's also victory in death. It is no wonder they called hupomene the queen of all virtues. So what does it mean for us today in 2023? We have to have hupomene, patience, endurance. If we intend to beat the devil and give him some black eyes at his game, and successfully do what God has called us to do. It's not a time to retreat. It's not a time to take some time off from the ministry because, heck, the pastor's not there. Let me tell you, this pastor doesn't take much time off. And if I do, it's usually because I'm sick lately. It's a time to advance. If you haven't noticed, the clock is ticking. The prophetic calendar is moving along. And his return is drawing near. It's not a question if we're going to get victory. Like I said, it's already promised to us, one way or the other. The only question is when. When? This hupomene power is essential if you are determined to stay in the fight. the fight of faith, until all our enemies are under our feet, which is promised, and we reign supreme. That's going to happen. It could happen here and now. But Jesus has the final say when he returns. And he is going to remain supreme. So don't turn loose of your faith. Don't give up. The day your vision, the day you give up, it is the day that your joy will disappear in life. And life itself will become pointless. And you'll end up in perdition. In some level of perdition that Paul uses to describe what that means, which we already covered. And if you start going down that path, you start oozing some putrid stench of a faith turned sour. Have you seen that in Christians? Absolutely. I don't judge their salvation. It's not for me to judge. But I could see their journey that they were on, where their faith turned sour. I've known Christians that blame everything on God always. They'll ask something from God in prayer, and the very next day, because they didn't get an answer that quickly, their faith turns sour. You might know some people like that. And maybe you don't. Maybe you're old enough that you have weeded out those type of people out of your life. But they exist. This is why Hebrews 10:38 says, if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. It doesn't say you're going to lose your salvation there. But it does say, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. Hebrews 11. What does it say? In Hebrews 11, verse 6. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. People that have no endurance in the faith don't diligently seek him. I have never met one. Why? Because they going in this direction, but somehow, some way, somewhere, they turn the other direction. And they stop following Jesus. They stopped being disciples of Jesus Christ. They stop putting their trust and faith in the one that has our lives in his hands. He knows what's best for us. He knows what we need. And until we receive it, we are to endure. Even if it means we don't get the promise here, but we will there. All promises will be fulfilled according to God's purpose. So, don't give up. Ask the Lord to give you the understanding and the endurance, the queen of all virtues, the hupomene, in your life. So whatever comes your way, you're going to abide in him and you become immovable. Because you are grounded in the Lord Jesus Christ. Now I'm out of time. Maybe I'll continue this at another time, because there's more that needs to be added to this, but I'm out of time. But now I want to hear from you. Play a song.